This is 3.6 video number 2, and we're going to factor this trinomial where the value of a is not 1. You have a series of steps on the side of your handout that we're going to follow. The first step is always to identify what a, b, and c are. A is 2, b is 11, and c is 12. The next step is to find two numbers in the world that multiply to give you what a times c are and add to give you b. So in this case, because a is not 1, this step here is slightly different than the last kind of question that we did. What's a times c? Well, it's 2 times 12, which is 24. So I want to find two numbers that multiply to be 24, but add to be 11. So quite often what I'll do on the side is I'll make a list of numbers that multiply to be 24. Well, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. And while you're doing this, you want to check, do either of these combine to be 11? Well, 8 and 3 do. So I'm going to put 8 and 3 and 8 and 3. This is where the question gets quite different than last time. We are not going to be able to just jump to brackets like we did last time. So your next step is to go back and look at your original question. I want you to rewrite the first guy as he is. I want you to leave a space, and then I want you to write the last guy just the way he is, and he keeps that plus 12. Now what you're going to do next is you're not going to write 11x. You're going to write something equivalent to 11x, because 11 is equal to 8 plus 3. So 11x is equal to 8x plus 3x. So right here, I'm going to write plus 8x plus 3x. It's not straight, but it'll be good enough. Now what you're going to do is, for a moment, you're going to pretend you almost have two questions here. You have these two guys being one question, and these two guys being another question. And you're going to find the GCF of these two guys and the GCF of these two guys. So here's what it's going to look like. We're going to break this down into our factors like we normally do. 2 times x plus 2 times 2 times 2x. And then I'm going to leave a bit of a space, plus 3x plus, and the 12 is going to be 2 times 6, which is 2 times 2 times 3. And again, I want you to consider this as one question, this is another question. Between these two, what's the GCF? Well, a 2 and an x, a 2 and an x. I'm going to write down the 2x. And in brackets afterwards, what do I have left? I have an x, I have a plus sign, and I have a 2 times 2, which is 4. First question kind of done. Now I'm going to drop this plus sign, and I'm going to look at these two. What's the GCF between them? Well, the only thing that they have in common is the 3. So I'm going to put the 3 down, and the rest go in brackets after. Open brackets, what's left for the first term? X plus 4. Now, what's interesting is you have 2x times an x plus 4 plus 3 times an x plus 4. And I want you to think of this in kind of a weird way for a second. If I gave you a 2x happy face plus a 3 happy face, what's the GCF between these two? Well, they both have a happy face, right? So you put the happy face down. What are you left with? Well, you're left with the 2x plus 3. The happy face is actually the x plus 4. So if I'm going to look at this entire question and say, what does this guy have in common with this guy? Well, they both have an x plus 4, which is going to act just like the happy face. So we write down the x plus 4 And because it was originally in brackets, I keep it in brackets here. Now, what comes after it goes in brackets. What's left? Well, when I pull the x plus 4 out of this first term, I have a 2x. When I pull the x plus 4 out of this last term, I have a plus 3 left. And that's the final factors for this question. And if you notice, this is the same question that we factored at the very beginning of this section using algebra tiles, and this is the same answer that we got. You can tell you're on the right track right at this point here because you should notice the exact same term showing up in brackets here as here. So, one question here says, use the distributive property from section 3.5 to check your answer. The steps are on page 25. So if I want to check this, I'm going to go and I'm going to rewrite this x plus 4 times 2x plus 3. And I'm going to use what we call the distributive property to check that. Distributive property says that I need to pass this x out to both of these guys in the brackets, and then I need to pass this plus 4 out to both of these guys. Now what does that look like? What's x times 2x? 2x squared. What's x times a plus 3? A plus 3x. Now, what's plus 4 times 2x? Plus 8x. What's plus 4 times 3? Plus 12. Can I combine any like terms here? Well, I have 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. So, did I do the original question right? The original question was this. I factored it into this. I took the factors, I distributed it out, and I end up with the exact same question I started with. So yes, I did do it correct. Let's do a couple more to the page. All right. Factor the following using the proper steps. Just zoom this in a little bit. And what are the proper steps? Proper steps are first to identify A, B, and C. A is 3, B is 7, C is 2. You want to find two numbers in the world that multiply to give you what A and C are. A times C is 3 times 2 is 6. And you also want to have two numbers that add to give you B, which is 7. What two numbers in the world multiply to give you 6 and add to give you 7? Well, just 6 and 1. Your next step is to go back to your original question and rewrite the first term exactly as it was, which is 3x squared. Leave a space. Write your last term exactly as it was, which is a plus 2. And you're going to remove 7x from looking exactly the way it did there. Instead of writing 7x, you're going to write 6x plus 1x. And again, this is a plus 6x and this is a plus 1x. So it's a plus 6x plus 1x. This is the part where you treat this as one question. This is another question and find the GCF of both. This turns into 3 times x plus 3 times 2 times x. That's the first two. Plus, now I have a 1x plus 2 here. What do the first two terms have in common? Well, they both have a 3 and they both have an x. So I'm going to write 3x down. What do I have left? In brackets, I have this x left, this plus sign left, and this 2 left. Now the next term is kind of interesting because when I look at it right now, I actually don't see anything in common. I have a 1 times an x plus a 2. But I'm going to kind of pull a little bit of a mathematical trick out of my hat here. And technically, if I wanted to, I could write this 2 as 2 times 1, because 2 times 1 is still 2. Now what do these two have in common? Well, they both have a 1. So if you can't take anything out by looking at it, you're going to be able to take a 1 out. So you do that. You have a 1, and what's left? An x, then a plus, then a 2, because the 1s we removed. You can tell you're on the right track here, because in both of our underlined terms now, you have an x plus 2. So now, what does this whole question have that I can take out of both terms? Well, they both have an x plus 2. So I'm going to take that x plus 2, write it down. What am I left with? Well, if I pull an x plus 2 out of this first guy, I have a 3x left, then a plus, then a 1. Let's do this one up here. A equals, B equals, and C equals. In this case, A is 2. The trick here is to remember that B is not 7, but it's minus 7. And C is 6. I want two numbers that multiply to give me A times C, which is 6 times 2, which is 12. And the same two numbers that add to give me B, which is negative 7. On the side here, let's make a list. What multiplies to give me 12? Well, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Right away, I know that 3 and 4 are going to be 7. So let's see if we can make that work. I'm going to put 3 times 4 here, and I'm going to put 3 plus 4 here, but then I notice I need a minus 7. So let's see if I can change those both to minus. Well, that works. And if I make these both negative, that works as well too. So that's good. Go back to the original question. Leave the first guy alone. 2x squared. Leave a space and leave the last guy alone. Plus 6. Get rid of the middle guy by changing minus 7x into minus 3x minus 4x. Now treat it as two separate questions with the squiggly underline, those two and those two. Let's break this down. 2 times x minus 3 times x minus 2 times 2 times x plus 2 times 3, squiggly underline, I guess. What do the first two have in common? Well, the first two have in common just an x. Write down the x. What do I have left? A 2x minus a 3. Now, last two guys, what do they have in common? Well, they have a 2 in common. But you need to remember that the first guy is negative, which means your GCF has to be negative. So instead of just writing a 2 down here, we write a minus 2. If you're factoring out a negative number, you need to remember that everybody inside here changes signs when I'm writing them in the bracket. So what's left? A 2x, then a minus sign because I'm switching signs, and then 3. Now look at this as one whole question. What does this have in common with this? Well, they both have a 2x minus 3. So I'm going to write a 2x minus 3 in brackets as it is. What's left? Well, when I remove the 2x minus 3 from the first term, I have an x. When I remove the 2x minus 3 from the second term, I have a minus 2. And that one's done.